Hello, my name is Caru Smuts, and I, together with my co-author Monica de Ruvo, will be presenting studio jewelry processes for the post-cyber designer.
The cyber revolution and the associated rapid advancement of technology has profoundly influenced the jewelry industry in both manufacturing and design processes. Digital technology enables designers to create virtually any imaginable geometry without the constraints of traditional manufacturing processes. Simultaneously, digital technology has highlighted a conflict with regard to the perceptions of value between the mechanically produced and the handmade jewelry piece. The combined application of modern digital design technology with traditional methods of working by hand in the studio jeweler's practice raises questions of authorship, authenticity, and craftsmanship. The problem lies with the synthesis of these opposing aspects in the post-cyber studio jewelry industry. In this paper, we refer to the studio jeweler's work as comprising the design and manufacture of bespoke pieces of jewelry underpinned by the individual design aesthetic of the designer and the personalized requirements of the customer. Jewelry design and production is a craft learned through tacit knowledge and practice over time. In this process, the relationship between the jeweler and their understanding of materials and the tools at their disposal are the first steps towards becoming a craftsperson. The studio jeweler primarily designs bespoke pieces of jewelry for the consumer that attach a perceived higher value to handmade jewelry pieces. This principle considers the manufacturing limitations and constraints of a product at the start of the design process. In South Africa, studio jewelers have made some integration of digital technology, while others have shunned the integration completely. The problem is that due to economic constraints and the vast creative possibilities afforded by digitally mediated processes, the future of the traditional jeweler's role is vulnerable. Using Schoen's theory of reflective practice as a lens, the authors aim to explore the incorporation of digital design technology into the studio jeweler's repertoire. Reflective practice is the ability to reflect on one's actions to engage in a process of continuous learning. Schoen draws a distinction between reflection during the event and reflection after the event. By asking jewelers to reflect on their practice, the authors attempt to answer the following research questions. To what degree are digital technologies incorporated in the practice of studio jewelers, and how could this inform the jewelry design curriculum?
The literature review investigates the challenge faced by studio jewelers using keywords such as jewelry design, jewelry processes, jewelry education, and digital craft. The articles were selected for inclusion based on their relevance to the post-cyber jewelry industry. 5 themes emerged from the data. The importance of handmade for the studio jeweler. Studio jewelers rely on the traditional handmade processes for the manufacturing of their bespoke pieces, while larger industry will use mass production processes to produce large quantities of a piece. Even though mass production has improved in quality and the presence of the handmade effect is still evident for the jewelry consumer and maker, the term handmade is often synonymous with authenticity. Sellis explains that the uniqueness lies in the imperfections and the slight differences from piece to piece. The second theme was the blurred lines between handmade and machine-made. Most production processes require some human involvement, and traditional methods incorporate machine assistance in some way. These overlaps makes it difficult to objectively label a product as completely handmade or machine-made, which creates an opportunity to present it as either and blur the lines. The next key theme was designonomics, which is the collective term for design and economics. The term describes the economic considerations of a design. In most traditional processes, the intricacy of a design is directly linked to its cost. According to Cooper 2015, the cost of labor in complex and intricate designs could be lowered with the use of digital fabrication tools. Autonomy from manufacturing restrictions and cost could also be achieved with the inclusion of digital design technology. Most design processes apply design for manufacture principle, where you consider the manufacturing of a product in the early stages of the design. With expanded capability, the use of both handmade skill and digital technology, the designer could potentially access autonomous design capabilities. The last or final theme from the literature review looks at the studio jeweler's design process. Batista developed this model in 2012 to assist jewelry design students to work in a structured and methodical manner. She breaks the design process down into 3 stages, namely investigation and analysis, creation, construction, and evaluation. The literature review indicates that the tools available to the studio jeweler should be assessed and evaluated according to the principles of historic value, handmade allure, designonomics, and autonomy. In this research, we explore a framework to guide processes that combine the handmade, mechanical, and digital processes for the highest quality and intrinsic value. Participatory action research was selected, which allows the subject to collaborate with the researcher in solving a problem. Studio jewelers and the researchers work together to find a solution based on an iterative reflective cycle. Every cycle consists of 4 stages that include identify, plan, act, and evaluate, as illustrated on the left. The concept of reflective practice was introduced by Sean in 1983 and provides an appropriate theoretical approach for research in jewelry design and practice. Sean states that the process of reflection can inspire continuous professional improvement. The notion of lifelong learning is recognized as an important skill in fast-changing contexts like the 4th Industrial Revolution. In this paper, we present the findings from the first of 3 envisaged cycles of inquiry. The results presented here will inform the second cycle of research. The first cycle aims to identify the processes that are currently used to create authentic handmade jewelry and to what extent they involve digital processes in the Greater Cape Town area. A snowball sampling method was used to identify participants. The first 5 participants were contacted from a Facebook group of jewelers in Cape Town, of which I'm a member. From there, we contacted possible participants based on referrals. 9 jewelers were interviewed during the contextual inquiry, including 3 manufacturing jewelers, 5 studio jewelers, 1 technology-based manufacturer. The interview guidelines were predetermined and conducted in a semi-structured conversational manner within each jeweler's studio space. Due to COVID-19 concerns, 1 interview was conducted via Zoom. Interviews were transcribed and analyzed with Atlas TI software. The findings are grouped into themes and discussed in the next section. The importance of handmade in current practice. 2 jewelers interviewed moved away from handmaking completely, as that title has had some associations with poorly made items. These jewelers are of the opinion that the branding of how it was made is not important. The service providers reiterated that the method is not important to the customer, but rather the quality of how it was made and the final aesthetic. In contrast to these opinions, 4 jewelers emphasized the importance of handmade to their practice. They described the practice of making as a journey they embark on with every piece, as there is something spiritual about handmade jewelry as it engages with the human body. Another jeweler mentioned that the allure lies in the exclusivity of handmade. They reiterated that machines may be able to do things humans cannot. But the touch or the mark made by the human hand is where the magic lies. That unique mark left on each piece is what makes handmade valuable and exclusive. The digital tools used by the scope of jewelers interviewed were similar, but the application of the tools and why they were selected were varied throughout the design processes in each practice. Digital design software is used for illustration purposes by most jewelers interviewed. There is the application of complex 3-dimensional software like Rhinoceros, as well as the application of simple software like Quick Sketch on a tablet device and Photoshop to create a realistic effect. Digital design drawing tools have also been incorporated into the handmade process of push engraving. It was interesting to note that the hand engraver would apply a digital method to transfer, like laser engraving, for such a manual process. In this instance, opposing technologies work in sync to create better economic value and increase the quality of the final product. The jewelers who applied computer-aided drawing and computer-aided manufacturing in their making process had different approaches to how these technologies should be applied in an authentic manner. Some jewelers outsource the CAD section of their process as they are not versed in the software. but still employ the technology. The CAM process is usually outsourced, as it is rare for studio jewelers to own the required equipment. Other technologies noted in the creation section of the process were the laser-based options such as micro-welding, laser engraving, and laser cutting. These technologies are usually employed on an outsourced basis to solve design-based problems. Jewelers were asked if there were any tools that they would like to incorporate into their practice. They noted that even though there are many options for illustrating designs, that most of them are time-consuming to apply to three-dimensional renderings. There is still a need for design software for fast and realistic renderings to illustrate ideas to customers. Direct metal printing, even though a technology that already exists, was noted as one to be explored for the jewelry industry. Metal printing was considered as an option for manufacturing of titanium rings, which is specifically rather difficult to work with by hand. Jewelers follow a process of investigating, conceptualizing, and making, as outlined by Batista's model. The first phase of the process is documented as organic, according to the business structure of each studio jeweler. The creation phase of the process is where the idea will be conceived and presented to the client. Multiple options is available for lithographic drawing, and full three-dimensional drawing was found to be time-consuming, and there is still a need for software that will render fast and doesn't require a high level of skill. Construction and evaluation have the most potential for inclusion of digital technology. Models could be used in wax as a realistic example or as a working model. Three-dimensional printing can be used as a starting point of a complex design, or it can be printed in full detail, ready to cast. The possibility to explore what other processes the technology could be used for and where in the design process it could have the greatest effect. Most of the jewelers interviewed do not have the skills for engaging with CAD software and employ an independent contractor to complete these tasks. The jewelers were asked to what extent they think digital technology can be incorporated into the handmade process. The opinions varied from no digital application in the process at all to some jewelers saying that a mixture of the processes will allow for the handmade title to stand. Authenticity of feel, meaning that if a piece attains the feeling of being handmade, irrespective of process, it is still considered to be handmade. Parameters and limitations for the use of CAD and CAM that was identified by the jewelers during the contextual inquiry included: design should be sculpted with a mouse and not use preset design elements, no preset stones in the wax, pave and micro settings should only be mapped and drilled, complex pieces should be drawn up in separate components to ensure proper polishing and finishing once assembled. Digital tools and processes like laser engraving, laser welding, and laser cutting were all still considered handmade and could be incorporated into the process of handmade jewelry, as it is a step in the creation of a piece and not the entire process. All parts of the process were noted and mapped as a conceptual framework to inform further research and is included in the figure on the right. The information gained from the contextual inquiry forms the basis of a proposed new framework which can be used for further research. The majority believed that digital tools require expertise and skills similar to the manual process. Nothing is simply handmade or machine-made. Everything is a complex mix of different things, and I think if we can embrace that complexity, we can really do some creative and exciting things. That was the opinion of one of the jewelers. Another jeweler noted that the tools applied is not what is important, but rather the maker's mark should be evident for the wearer. The findings of this inquiry could assist the studio jeweler to remain relevant and competitive by employing a designonomic approach whilst retaining the authenticity of the handmade in a post-cyber society. The proposed framework will inform design education in the field of jewelry design. Graduates need to be able to confidently toggle between methods and adapt to processes by embracing the efficacy of combining the handmade, mechanical, and digital processes for the highest quality and intrinsic value. There is also a need for flexible higher education programs that can respond to the gap identified amongst studio jewelers for continued professional learning. Thank you.